Yeah, I'm going to go live. Yeah, I'm going to type in first. Just a minute. Right, public. We are preparing live. And yes, we are on live right now. Right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are with us right now, you're looking at the Platinum platform, and I'm going to share this with a few groups. And Ralph Ave, Mr. Ralph Ave, who's in California there, and myself in Singapore, we would like you to join us for the next 30 minutes or so with us in our conversation about observations of the world and whether humanity, we are heading towards a better place or a worse place or a mixture, right? Depending on how you want your world to be. So we are here at my personal Facebook, professional Facebook, Vicky Esther Chang, and you can look us up at the Platinum platform. We are on live already, and please share to as many friends as possible. All right, we are here. It is 1:28 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, 30th of August. And Ralph, we are already past the halfway mark of 2024. Beautiful, sunny summer here in Singapore, as always, because it's a tropical island. A little bit of promotion for me. Get this book. Mr. Ralph Ave and myself, co-authors for Gold Nuggets for Entrepreneurs. It ever hit #1 bestseller on Amazon.sg. Get this on Amazon.com, wherever you are, or get this in the National Libraries in Singapore or at the university libraries. And also my book, Candle in the Wind, tribute to my mom who has passed, about her footsteps in the world. You know, we don't want to forget someone who has been on this earth. So look them up. Ralph, we've got very important topics before us, Ralph. Another 30 minutes. It was such a great time with you yesterday. Ralph, tell us where you are at right now.
Currently in California, it's August 29th, Thursday, and it's 10:28 p.m. here, so a little later.
Yeah, so I am about 15 hours ahead of you. Ralph, yesterday, we had a very enjoyable conversation yesterday. We talked about young people, we talked about the generation and the generation after us. I'm an educator myself, and you're a father, you're also a mentor, and you're also a sports coach to a lot of young people, and you are a retired a military, a veteran from USA Air Force, the top 1% of your cohort, a feat, and also the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Thank you, sir, for being with us and like your take on some of these issues. Really, this is for educational and for entertainment purposes. Everyone join in, comment with us, follow us here on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the various podcast catches, and also on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. Ralph, yesterday we talked about something close to our hearts. the generation after us. You know, I really want to emphasize, and we don't emphasize enough, is time is fast and furious and swift and aggressive. Time is just chasing us, and we're just running ahead. You know, I don't think we've got lots of useful time left, Ralph. To be really, really honest, if you look back, life has already gone past. You've got a full career behind you already. And we are looking at another part of our lives. And this is another season of our lives we're entering. And we want to leave behind good stuff for our generation, right? As an educator, I always say champion your dreams, your hope, tread where no one has gone to, so that you could leave the trail behind for someone easier. And we talked about grit. We talked about are we leaving the world a better place? But have we left the world a softer place for the generation? I think, Ralph, this is something that is close to your heart too. Ralph, you want to tell us about where we left off yesterday?
Yeah, so like you said, are we leaving the next generation in good hands? There's a saying, right? Hard times create good men create good times create weak men. And,
Yeah,
I think that's where we're at right now,
yeah,
where everything's so easy for us. I mean, you type in your iPhone or whatever you have, and it automatically spell checks for you. You don't have to think about anything. And I think that's a little dangerous because now we're going away from the human element, which is, I think, is still very valuable. We can't trust. For me personally, I don't trust machines because there's no feelings in machines. It's very direct. It's very black and white. There's no gray area like the human mind has. Is this wrong? Is this right? I don't think machines have that capability or will ever have that capability that humans will have in that sense.
yeah,
So
and yeah.
yeah, I just hope we didn't make it so easy for the next generation that they're gonna struggle.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for bringing that up. And I think you hit the spot that we are in right now, because we have entered into the era of AI. You know, even though we don't feel it now, it's going to come on very aggressively. I mean, think about that. You know, I have Lillian Cardwell, my other co-host and also my co-author, who's going to write a series of books with us ourselves, you know, our panel of international writers for Gold Nuggets. She says at her lifetime, you know, she's seen so much the black and white television, the telephone that you still dial. And I still grew up with the telephone that we actually do dial, and the word is dial, right? But now you just speak onto the phone and say, can I like to call this and this? You don't even need to like click. I think we are entering into the era already. And it's so fast, like what we started off by saying, the time has been so aggressive behind us. It kind of just pushed us into a new era, even without us knowing, because it doesn't happen like this, like ding, 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 ding. Okay, we're into the AI era, ding, 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 ding. We're into the digital era, but look at us. We are having this conversation. We've got our Gold Nugget series out already in a digital form, in a digital a world that we're in, that we collaborated. We've not met each other. We only meet each other digitally. You know, Ralph, your question, have we made it too easy for the generation behind us? I think that's a very critical question. Me being an educator, being old school, you know, I think the word grit is important. And I think all those entrepreneurs that we're looking at right now, Elon Musk, you know, some of these greatest entrepreneurs, Jensen Huang, people who are the billionaires, They say they didn't turn to be billionaires, millionaires overnight. You don't see them struggling because they lived on $1 or less before the success. And we don't get to see it because in the instantaneous gratification era that we're in right now, like what you say, just a click of a button, the book comes out, just a click of a button, your resume is being written, your fate is being written. Are we making it too easy for the generation behind us because we're leaving them the world that is too successful? For example, if you are Warren Buffett, you've got billions of dollars. And something that's heartening in American millionaires and billionaires, they are actually, some of them are pledging their wealth to the charities. This is heartening on the one aspect, which is very different from Eastern world that we're in here in Singapore. We want to leave as much wealth and money as possible to the generation after us so that they have it easier. So now we are in this kind of dichotomy. Do we want the world to be easier or do we not want the world to be easier? I think that's the intense question that is facing us right now. As an educator myself, and as a father, what do you think as a father on a personal level, Ralph?
It's a tough balance because you want to teach your kids how to handle failures, how to move forward.
Yeah.
And you even see it with the how they speak now and how they spell. I mean, grammar's horrible when they post stuff on social media. It's like there's no periods or commas, and there's a lot of misspell with your, Y-O-U-R, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E, and then just all of that. They get confused on how to use that, and they use R and they put A-R-E instead of O-U-R when talking about our stuff. So that's what I'm afraid of. Like
Yeah.
we trust this automatic stuff so much that it's not teaching us anything.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Now, you give a very good example that I think we are really falling into, like we use too much emojis, right? Instead of sentences to express the deepest parts of our hearts. We made things too superficial already. With a very little minimal of words through text messages. I call it the text message era, right? The Insta era. And to make it even much more concrete, for example, in the schools right now, we're building the world-class universities, we're building world-class schools right here in my doorstep in Singapore. The children are being driven in air-conditioned cars. You're talking about self-driving buses. We're talking about food that comes out from the vending machine. We're talking about buying things off Amazon that is delivered to our doorstep. We're talking about children, or actually young people, the generation that has it good, and we are guilty of that too, right? As compared to our forefathers. Walking into an air-conditioned classroom in summer because we complain it's too hot outside. We want to run into a place where there's air conditioned, or it's too cold outside. We run into a place where there are warmers. So the question is, where is that line? And I think we don't have answers. That's why we need podcasts like this. We are asking really tough questions because you and I do not have time to sit down and say, hey, are we making the world too easy for our kids? Let's write an essay, right? But that's what podcasts like this are important, Ralph. We are making a stock take. We are making a stock take. Let's pause and review. Everyone, the AI era, we are going into a place whereby things are easy. we could be even dangerous, Ralph, because we're making it in such a way that it's so easy to make things also positive or negative, because the power is now in our hands to make the machines or to instruct the machines the way we want. You know, there's also the other part about pornography. You know, now you've got AI pornography. You've got
Yeah.
pedophilia pornography through AI, artificial, sad to say. So I think we're treading in a world whereby things are good and easy and look successful, but people are not talking about the downside too much, because there's too much shares and stock price at stake.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and people are trying to win elections like in America, the 5-year cycle or 4-year cycle. So I think these are big question marks that Ralph and myself we are trying to put up there. We don't have answers, and neither do Elon Musk and Warren Buffett of the world. But the world we are trying to move so fast ahead. We need to have conversations like this. Where is the line? Should we be a little bit slower, or should parents, tutors, educators, the whole machine or the whole mechanism should stop tick? Rel, what's your take on what I've said?
I I mean, it's good to have convenience, but to a certain point. And I think that's why it's good when people do other things besides education, like sports, because
Mm,
you're not gonna get better if you're gonna challenge yourself and get better than that other person. You're gonna have to do it yourself. There's no machine or stuff like that will get you better. You have to go find out what makes you tick and motivate you to get to that skill level or better. You know, so they have to challenge themselves. The thing I worried about education is you can find the answers on Google, right? So
mm,
it and they don't teach you the behaviors that you need. Are you in an
yeah,
interview? Are you sitting up straight? Are you talking
mm,
properly? Are you using slang? You know, even when I got out of the military, I had to adjust my language because we taught military slang, and I had to adjust it to where it was layman's terms.
mm,
So it, you know, and then resumes, right? The resumes are writing themselves now with Chat GPT and all that. And it's still, I still get people coming to me to do resumes because, like I said, there's no human element in it. It's
yeah,
just, it's just following a rigid structure that doesn't really guide it. It just spits it out, you know. But
yeah,
then when
yeah,
you look at it, there's no human feel to it, and that's what I'm afraid of. Like, are we heading to a place where we're trusting too much of the machines now that we're getting lazy and we're not challenging ourselves to challenge those machines? Because there's one military story I heard, right? They were above looking over some soldiers. They didn't know if they were the enemy or not,
yeah.
right? So the one on the ground, he was saying, "Hey, only the U.S. wears cat eyes. These cat eyes, they reflect a light on the helmet, and only U.S. at that time, only the USA wore that. USA servicemen wore that in the field." And he kept verifying because they had the green light to shoot them all. But he kept going back and saying, "I think that's our soldiers. I think that's our guys." They verified it was our guys, and that's because of the human element in there. They didn't trust that machine. But he was so observant that he saw the cat eyes on the helmets. So that's one example where I'm like, yeah, we
Mm.
still need the human element down there.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. You know, even in the schools, even the researchers right now for PhD, they're trying to find out if um, the students, the graduates, are actually using the Chat GPT and whatever
Yeah,
AI machines are writing the PhD thesis. And I think you're right. like what Elon Musk was interviewed a couple of days ago, he did say that at one point, at some point, the machines will overtake the intelligence and it will overtake people. And I'm not doubting his word at all, because you're talking about this visionary who's made a lot of stuff. You need someone to speak the truth. He talked about regulating machines, AI, years ago, even like 15 years ago, when he was first with one of the board members, when he was involved in ChatGPT in 2015. It took a long time for them to come out, right? It didn't just like overnight ChatGPT just came out, because it took a lot of time. The plowing of the energy, the plowing of all this into like the research and all this. He did say that at some point you need to have regulation. He was a proponent of regulation because it could become so dangerous if it lands in the hands of your adversaries. And I'm talking about the dark forces and the bad actors of the world. And of course, we can't define until the cow comes home who are the dark forces and who are the bad horses, or who are the bad actors. We could say it's Putin, but it could be the people who are just undercover. Anyone, you know. And I think you did mention a point about back to the point about do we make it too easy because the machines are going to take over, and I think there's no question about the machines taking over, Ralph. Just like you and I, we're connected. There's always double sides, right? It's always a double-sided sword, two sides of a coin. We've got the good and the bad. So we've got the social goods and the social bads. For example, street lights, right? I've been taught in economics, street lights, social good, because you've got to pay your taxes to create street lights for people to drive. You've got to pay taxes. Now, taxes have a purpose, right? But to a certain point, taxes become a burden on people. But street lights are important because it light the street and you don't pay for it in your electrical bill. That's a social good. Social media becomes free because you look and you touch. But we have not been taught, like as an educator myself, we have not come to the level whereby the changes are keeping it, the changes of education, curriculum, our values have kept up with the changes of our world right now. How do you, as a mother, teach a child not to play that particular game because that game is racist, for example, and you don't even know that the game is racist? There are games that are racist, by the way. There are games that actually groom children to become, homosexual, etc. I'm not going to go into it. We still respect that, but I'm saying that there are a lot of games out there, and I've played them. I know it, right? Because I've played games before, and these are like deep games. And the thing is that we are not keeping up with the changes in this machine world that we're living in. That it can become dangerous. And the social goods like street lights, buses, bus transports, public transports that we are taught in school, these are important stuff, but we are not taught free stuff like social media. It can be good or can be bad. So there is still a lot of debates on it. Where do we draw the line from machines? Because you and I are sitting on machines. You and I are sitting on Google. And you and I are sitting on this machine called the Zoom. And you and I are sitting on a machine called Facebook. There has not been enough of sufficient talk like ours right now, to talk about how humanity should evolve with the evolvement of machines. Back to the topic, humanity for better or for worse. I mean, we are just kind of like bringing the questions out. Ralph, if I'm gonna ask you to write an essay right now and conclude humanity for better or for worse, what's your take on it?
I just think we need to take critical thinking more seriously. We need to teach them at a younger age, don't take everything at face value. Do your research, look beyond the surface, look deeper where it came from and what the actual truth is. Because a lot of people just take a lot of things at face value when they see it on the news. And And then when you go research it, it's like it's actually not true. It's just to um sensationalize it to the people so they get
Sensationalism.
emotionally charged, right? Which is, I don't believe, I mean, emotion is good, but when you're using emotion to make a decision that, that kind of bends the truth, that's a whole nother story. If
I,
you just
I,
look at facts without your emotion, let everything go, that even if you don't like the person, you don't like what it said,
yeah.
look behind it and see where it's coming from.
I
But
like the point whereby you brought up two things, which I like to respond: critical thinking, sensationalism, sensationalizing a lot of stuff. Critical thinking, but Ralph, you've hit a very, very important point. Bullet point, large bullet point here, critical thinking. Do you know that there are political forces that tries to take away your critical thinking, and
yes,
they try to take away your thinking skills, and that's very dangerous. We're entering into an era whereby people don't realize that they're not thinking anymore.
mhm. and
And
that's
they don't
we go
even
back,
know that they're not thinking. And I
and
want
that's the
to,
media machine, right? So that's going back to the
yeah,
machine again, the media machine.
the
So
media
it's
machine. And who's behind the media machine? Many
exactly, so
people,
a lot
rich
of big
people,
corporations, yeah,
corporations, political
elites.
forces, elites, and you're right. Um, and it's so dangerous. And I think we've entered into the era whereby, like what you say, critical thinking versus sensationalism. And I think I could write an essay on it because I think we could write a book on it. Sensationalism, when you put in too much things that sensationalizes something, you actually do take away your thinking. Think about, think about the pun there, the viral videos, and you think that they are right because it has gone viral. It takes away your thinking because if everyone a million views or 200 million views, how many million? They must be right.
Yeah,
Duh, question mark. And it kind of, you kind of go into this mode that, hey, um, you just stop thinking because you are being bombarded with this truth that is
right.
viral, that gives you the pump of that energy that, hey, yes, that sensationalizing of visuals that is being pushed to your eyeballs, if you know what I'm trying to say, because we are
Yeah,
getting into the intangibles right now.
yeah, and it depends who's sending it to, right? On what
Yeah,
they want the people to see.
you're
So
right, you're
pe-
right.
people don't like critical thinking. Okay, let me see the whole picture, not just a 5-second clip. So, but
I
a lot of
applaud
people
you for
don't do
that.
that.
I totally applaud you for that. Um, think about American election, for example. And I'm not taking any side, but I'm thinking about elections in general. You do know that very powerful external forces is trying to sway public opinion to the social media. And it's not a conspiracy. Ralph, studies have shown, statistics have shown there are external forces trying to
Yeah,
sway public opinion. And they're trying
yeah.
to generate a kind of narrative. And they're trying to take away your thinking. And that's very
Just
dangerous.
like
And
what?
it's happening around the world right now because those who have been bestowed with the power are already using the machines to do that. So you can see the layers of issues that are interlaying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you see that article that Mark Zuckerberg came out with?
Oh, the
Yeah. So
COVID.
yeah, how about suppressing certain information and advertising more on the one side more than the other? And he was pressured to do that. Like, okay, well, why is it finally coming out now when that happened like 4 years ago? So I think it's pretty interesting. Like, what are they trying to do to the people in a certain country. That's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
Like you said, or like we've been saying, it's critical thinking's
yeah.
just been taken away because they just trust things at face value now.
Now think about the armies of hidden people behind the fake identities, right? They are the trollers. They make you change your opinion because the way they troll,
Right.
they instill fear in you. They instill that hatred in you, so
Fear
that they
mongering.
want you to go into a certain direction of thinking, right? Now that's very, very dangerous because you and I were in the digital world. We kind of know the power that the digital media is bringing us. Yeah, and we've covered a lot of topics here. Another 5 minutes in our talk. We covered about whether we're leaving the world a better place for the generation after us. We also it's a big question. That's why we're going to talk about this again next week. Whether humanity we're headed in a better direction or a worse direction, and where's the line? I also want to talk about, we did talk about critical thinking. I want to talk about something that probably we can bring this issue up next week. It's something that I've coined, and I've thought a lot about it because I've lived in various countries, uh, and I've lived in China, in a communist country. Before was really, really open for like the market mechanism that we're in. China is still communist. I've lived in Europe. I've lived in Asia. I've traveled 25 countries. A lot of things that I've observed. I want to talk about this power of balance of power beyond the dynamics of a corporation. I want to talk about the power of small people like us. We're just like a cog in a machine, right? Um, the think about, it's happening in many countries already. They are restructuring in big corporations. I talked about that last week, my pet topic about workers being retrenched. And a retrenchment is still continuing because machines are taking over. And at a certain point, it will not be a headline anymore because they're occurring too much. You know what I'm trying to say? And companies are collapsing. They're closing their brick and mortar stores. They're closing their retail and they're moving online. Think about the cashiers. Think about the sales girls. Think about the customer relationship person. Think about the floor manager, the receptionist. Think about people who need to open the door for you. And if these shops are closed, the big, huge retail companies are closed, where do the people go? And because these people are the Main Street people of wealth, and because they're Main Street, they don't have a voice. And I always feel that I need to speak up. If someone is being taken, someone's job is being taken over because of machine, because the machine washes the toilet better, it flushes better, etc., etc. Think about that mother, the father, or the sister who loses their job and they do not have a skill. Number one, my heart goes out to them. And will they come onto the podcast to tell us that, hey, Ralph, hey, Vicky, I've lost my job as a janitor? I think we have to give visibility to the invisibles. And my heart goes out to even people who are educated but have their jobs taken away. Like, for example, your child or the students who are growing up, they've been told when they get a degree, they get a bachelor, they get a diploma, they get a skill, they're going to get a job. But what if by the time they grow up, there's no job for you? Hey, I worry about that a lot, and that keeps me up at night. I worry about that balance of power between corporations, who holds that power, and with people who are voiceless and faceless. They've got no say when bottom line takes over. and when profit takes over, and when machines take over, because it's so easy to just say goodbye. I mean, think about that, Ralph. You have a school, right? But now you've got like they can record me teaching a class in a video, teaching mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2. But they when put me up in a class and they take me away, they just put me a video out there. They don't need me anymore, Ralph. Duh. My job as a teacher is going to be taken away, for example, and that is a real thing that is already happening because we've got webinars, we've got recorded videos right now when you go for classes, and in some universities in Australia, they're already getting the AI professors. So now I am thinking about there is going to be such a huge trend that you think that you're alone because my job is taken over by the machine. But hey, actually, it's a lot of us. But because we did not come together and make this known, the machines will slowly take over. And the bottom line will slowly take over. And this is not a conspiracy theory, Ralph. You know, I hate people when they say me, Vicky, you've got so many conspiracy theories. I say, no, you're not thinking enough. Ralph, do you have anything to respond to what I just like poured out?
Yeah, it's like I said, it goes back to critical thinking, right? Looking at the trends and how it's going, and then you're saying how it's just a video now, where you don't have that human interaction to to see that reaction, to see that action of a reaction. Like if I act this way, will that person act this way? You know, that they're not gonna have that anymore, and that worries me because when they go in person to talk to someone, say like a job interview, and they don't know how to act because they lose that human interaction. They only know how
I
to act with
totally
their friends,
agree.
but not to superiors. You know,
Yeah.
because when we were younger, we were taught auntie, uncle, miss, Mrs., Mister in front of before you call that person's name. You know, but now it's not like that. Now you hear some kid, especially in America, you hear young kids calling
Hey,
their elders
yo.
by first name. It's like, no, it's not right. But
Yeah.
that's the
I
digital
totally,
age
I
we live in now.
totally, I experienced that, you know. They would just say, hey, even though they know you and your name, it makes it easier
Yeah,
for them. Like, hey, yo. It's like, I mean, if you are an equal, yes. I mean, you wanna show some, and you're right about that personal touch, about machines that make our jobs easier. Yes, we need the machines. Yes, we need an egg beater. Yes, we need a washing machine. And yes, we do need a fruit juicer. We need machines, right, Ralph? But there comes a tipping point um,
right.
when your job is directly threatened and you actually take home less, or you do not take home and you can't feed the child or the children at home. And I think that's already happening. And that's why I think there was there's someone, what's the person's name? Um, yes, in the last election there was Andrew Yang. He talked about people should be paid minimum wage because machines are going to take over, or that the companies are taking your data. You should be given a check of $1,000 because that should be it, because your data is being taken over, right? But I think it's much more urgent now. There's someone who says, oh, what's her name? But I'm gonna look at it again. You should be paid your wages because some point in time the machines are going to take over your job and you're not going to bring home that bread anymore. And that's going to threaten social stability. And you will see a lot of violence. And that's right. And I think that was one of the message that Andrew Yang was talking about. He talked about violence in the streets at some point, when there's no jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. And I think fast forward now, it's already happening 5 years later. 6 years later. But politics aside, we're really talking about someone who the technology taking over. And I'd like to also continue our conversation next week, about this because it's such a huge topic, deep topic that we're just scraping the surface. I'd like to talk more about corporate autocracy. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Corporations that have an overly excessive power over your fate, like an autocrat. They determine your pay tomorrow, and they can say that tomorrow they're going to take away your pay. Or they say, if you don't reduce your salary from 2,000 to 500, the machine is going to take over your job. What are you going to say? So I think I want to talk more about corporate autocracy. I should come up with a book on that because it's a word that I coined up. It's something that I see interplay very, very vividly coming soon in our hands. Not so much talk about right now, but something that I think I want to talk about, the people who are invisible and who are voiceless, who are going to be taken over by the bottom line and the machines through corporate autocracy. Over to you, Ralph, in the next 5 minutes as my co-host.
Looking forward to I like to call it work dynamics. Again, you have to challenge yourself between how hard you're gonna work. Do I care because the machines are gonna take over anyway, or do I want to spend more time with my family? So it's kind of a tough work-life balance that have to be. So
whether the companies allow you to.
So and then it depends who your leaders are, right? So do they care about your work-life balance, or
Oh
do they
yes,
care about that bottom line? So
probably the only human that's going to be there is who's going to sit on top. You never know the person who's going to sit on top who will be a machine some years later down the line. Ralph, what other topics will you be talking about next week? We will probably come back next week on Monday or Tuesday. But please do look out for Ralph and myself, deep topics that is going to determine humanity for better or for worse. Ralph, what can we expect? What can the viewers expect from you?
Well, just feeding off of you, right? I remember you mentioned something about quiet quitting and work dynamic. So that's probably something we talk about next week.
What would you want us to hear from you about quiet quitting?
The decision to do it. People get to a certain point where they're not getting raises anymore, but they're working so hard and they're to the point, what for? What am I doing this for? I'm sacrificing time with my family to work so hard for this company, but yet they're not giving me the raises. And with everything going up, all the prices going up, like why am I here? So I know a lot of people that go through that.
With that as a conclusion, I know a lot of people is going to jump in to tune in, and I love to talk about that. We've got already about 35 minutes already. Always so intense with you. I think today much more intense than yesterday. I think viewers can listen in for more topics, and please do tune in, even though you're here just for a short while. Some of you just watching for a couple of minutes. Come back, comment, follow us, and we invite you to give us your hope and your hopes and your thoughts about what we just brought up about quiet quitting. Are you fed up with your life right now? Fed up with the work? Are you fed up with all these pressures that's coming onto you? What about time itself? Do we have enough time to plan for retirement? Do you have enough of resources to plan for retirement? Do we have enough of help to plan for a good retirement that we don't depend on another person? I think these are real questions, Ralph. I think should we touch on these questions?
I think we should save it for next week.
Yeah, exactly. We will touch on them next week. Thank you so much, Ralph. It's such an honor to have you across the globe. The good part of the machine, the social good part, the social good part. And because while we are at the social good, let's bring out more social good for the world. Shouldn't we, Ralph?
Absolutely. I agree.
So I'm signing off here from Singapore, the 30th of August, 2:08 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. And Ralph, over there,
It's 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. So
I'd love all of us to continue this conversation. Join us. And I do know people are just watching us. Got friends who are tuning in. They want to hear the topics that we talked about. So thank you so much again, Ralph. And a lot
Thank
of
you.
respect for you who have done so much for America and for the world. You know, we are at a crossroads. We want a strong America, really. We want a strong America that kind of stabilizes certain powers of the world so that small people like us, we can still have our lives. Right.
Right.
And we still want inflation to go down. Let's have the American leader to kind of keep the world's prices down. Ralph, vote for the right person. And I have no idea. So we'll tune in next week.
Thank you, Vicky.